Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Zarek Karate Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1991 action-adventure period piece drama titled Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And everything I do it for you, will forever be etched in your memories as probably one of the greatest ballads that has ever been written by, of course, the great Canadian legend Bryan Adams, who went on to win not only an Academy Award for Best Theme Song in a Movie, but also, I think he also went on to win a Grammy for his song. Yeah. I bet you guys were all probably expecting some Jolly Ollie, Hey Naughty Naughty type of song to go with the time period of this movie. But no, we get a 90s pop song. Or pop rock. Since it is kind of a ballad and Bryan Adams is conventionally a rocker. Anyways, the runtime of this movie is 2 hours and 23 minutes long. It is directed by Kevin Reynolds. The script was written by Penn Densham and John Watson. The story was done by Penn Densham. It is produced by Penn Densham, John Watson, and Richard Barton Lewis. It is composed by Michael Kamen. The cinematography was done by Douglas Milsom, and it was edited by Peter Boyle. And the stars of the movie are Kevin Costner, Morgan Freeman, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, Alan Rickman, Christian Slater, Geraldine McEwan, Michael McShane, Brian Blessed, Michael Wincott, Nick Brimble, Harold Innocent, Walter Sparrow, Daniel Newman, Daniel Peacock, Jack Wilde, Sue Drouet, Liam Halligan, Michael Goldie, Susannah Corbett, and of course, James Bond himself, the legendary Sean Connery as King Richard the Lionheart. So when Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was first released, I was just, a struggling youth trying to find his way into the world. I was only 15 at the time when this movie came out, maybe 14. And I needed to find some sort of escapism. It's tough being an adolescent. Something to occupy my time. After watching this movie, it helped relieve a lot of stress that I was facing, and it kept me entertained for almost 2 hours for the almost 2 hour and 30-minute duration. I mean, this movie was definitely one of the time-honored classics in the early 1990s. And it helped me out a lot. I was even surprised this movie lasted this long because everything just flew by very quickly. This is definitely a movie that people who could sit through this movie and not even have to look at their watches. And I gotta admit, this movie really was quite fascinating. Sure, it had its share of flaws, like Kevin Costner and a few other actors performing without making any effort to speak with a British accent, coming from a film that was set in the 12th century Great Britain. But underneath all the other revisionist tropes featured here, like a telescope that wasn't invented back then, to gunpowder that was invented in China, it was still one that won't let it get to me, contrary to those purists who'd stick to the classic movie from 1938 that starred the great Errol Flynn. I mean, yeah, okay, people shit on Kevin Costner because of his lack of a British accent. Well, actually, originally, he wanted to do the British accent. But director Kevin Reynolds said, "You seem to be struggling, so you know what? Fuck it. Just just use your own voice. No need to worry what the purists have to say. If they don't like it, too fucking bad." Anyhow, he wasn't the only one, okay? So let's not just let's not just piss over him. There were other ones too. I mean, a lot of people just seem to had came in and out of their accents. Okay, sure, maybe they could have just hired British actors to perform this movie. That's fine. That would have been okay. I think Cary Elwes was originally supposed to play Robin Hood in this movie, but he backed out. But instead, he ended up doing the parody to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Robin Hood, Men in Tights. Hey, unlike some other Robin Hoods, he actually spoke with a British accent. But we're not talking about Men in Tights. Although I would love to do a movie review on that. And of course, there's all kinds of anachronisms in this movie, but it was made to be that way because since it's a parody. This movie was not a parody. So we'll get more into these kind of things too. I mean, there's all kinds of other revisionist stuff there that was utilized in there, including the sheriff of Nottingham, who not only just is just stealing people's money and being just some greedy, corrupt government official. It appears as though as if he's also a skilled fighter. He's also into devil worshipping, under the influence and guidance of his mentor, who probably might even be his mother. I guess I'm talking about that witch. What was her name? Martiana. That's it. Yeah. There was all kinds of interesting odds and ends in there too. I mean, they had. I mean, he also had Morgan Freeman in this movie as Azim, his black Muslim friend who was a Moor, and of course, at one time before Spain became this Roman Catholic country, Spanish speaking country, at one time Spain used to consist of black Muslims, and they were of course known as the Moors. They were the aboriginals of Spain. They weren't white Christians. They were black Muslims. And I'm not saying that for the sake of being woke. It's a well-known fact. Look it up. Anyhow, yeah. I mean, he could have been just, tokenized, but I think Morgan Freeman actually was quite effective in his performance. And I will probably elaborate more into the characters because this movie really is truly character driven. And I will go into that. Yeah, I know it's gonna piss off the purists. But you know what? If you're so obsessed with Puritanism, what makes people even think the Errol Flynn movie was how the story of Robin Hood came about? I mean, it wasn't all just some beautiful, immaculate looking, lush green scenery, and our swashbuckling hero is not some, handsome, debonair, charismatic vigilante. Although, I'm not gonna stalk off and say that Kevin Costner was homely or anything like that. Far from it. He still had the handsome look and appeal, but it's just not the setting that you would probably expect, and I think that probably has a lot more authenticity. The place was decrepit. It was muddy. People were wallowing in their own filth. It wasn't some pristine green scenery. And I think this movie wanted to go into a different direction. And sometimes, if you want to do a little bit of revisionist history and want to go into a different direction, well, as long as you can still tell a good story, I don't see what the fucking problem is. Anyways, let's move on. In this adaptation, we have the. Sorry about that. My voice breaks sometimes. In this adaptation, we have the opening scenes where Robin of Locksley, played by Kevin Costner, is locked in a dungeon in Jerusalem while fighting with King Richard the Lionhearted, played by Sean Connery, during the Crusades. With the help of a wise but fierce Moor warrior named Azim, played by Morgan Freeman. Was he supposed to actually replace Alan and Dale? Because I think maybe they were trying to do that just so that they can avoid the whole cliche Hey Nani Nana type of period piece. That sounds more closer to medieval times during the Renaissance. But anyhow, yeah. So he joins forces with a fierce Moor warrior named Azim. Robin is able to return home to England, only to realize that evil, corruption, and malice has transpired since his departure. In other words, he comes home from a war, only to find there's now a war in his neck of the woods. So in other words, no rest for the weary. This guy simply can't take a fucking break. The castle to which he called home was burned. His father was brutally murdered, all because of some corrupt bishop who thinks he's been dealing with satanic rituals. And all the people living in the town of Nottingham have fallen through hard times thanks to the remorseless, cruel, and tyrannical leader of the Sheriff of Nottingham. Oh, by the way, he was actually given a name in this movie. Yeah. In Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the Sheriff of Nottingham's first name happens to be George. Hey, in Men in Tights, his name is actually Mervyn. But here, the Sheriff of Nottingham is actually given the name George. Usually in most Robin Hood movies, the Sheriff of Nottingham is not even given a name. So after rescuing a young boy named Wolf, played by Daniel Newman, who was being chased off by the sheriff's cousin, Guy of Gisborne, played by Michael Wincott, because he killed the king's deer. The boy needed it for food for his family. Robin eventually pays a visit to a person from his childhood past, Lady Marion Dubois. I always thought her last name was supposed to be Fitzbarrett, but I guess since her brother's name is Peter. Okay, Lady Marion is played by Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. And he was there to return a ring that was once worn by her brother Peter, played by Liam Halligan, who died in the Crusades. The meeting between him and Marion was very cold and hostile at first, and boy, she can really actually duel it out with Robin Hood quite effectively. I'm pretty much glad to see that Maid Marian or Lady Marian is not just some one-dimensional, vulnerable damsel in distress who needs to be rescued. Yeah, okay, yes, I know eventually in this movie it did boil down to her being the damsel in distress, but we can easily clearly tell that she's just as much of a skilled fighter as him, and she does do put up a good fight with him. She is quite savvy with weaponry, and she actually has some pretty impressive fighting skills and even martial arts techniques. How did she learn it? I don't know. Anyhow, I'm glad they actually upgraded her into that kind of position. Yeah, I know in the end she kind of was like, well, she's just a one dimension. Yeah, I know she ends up becoming the damsel in distress in the end. But at least we get to see some great banter between her and Robin. And she does kind of have a bit of that strong female trope without making it over the top or to try to usurp him. Because I don't think you could actually usurp Kevin Costner. He has to be the one to deliver the final blow in the end. Even though it would have been cool that if she would have actually did do the final blow in the movie, or at least try to, maybe slow him down a little bit, and then Robin could have just took the final blow to the sheriff and killed him up. It could have worked either way. Anyways, I really digged her performance quite well. So the meeting with them was cold and hostile at first, but that would later evolve to a mutual respect and finally end in love and marriage. When Gisborne returns with a vengeance, he leads Robin into the allegedly haunted Sherwood Forest, where it's said that ghosts haunt there and everyone avoids it. By the way, this movie does have some levels of horror elements. I mean, they have a witch in this movie, for example. So when Robin enters the Sherwood Forest, he discovers that it isn't haunted at all, and that the residents who live there are a band of outlaws who are fierce, clever, remorseful, and dangerous. Huh. They may as well just been the Lost Boys, but no. Nonetheless, they would eventually become Christianed as his merry men. Robin wins their respect from these outlaws and becomes their leader after winning a duel with a large, intimidating, but gentle lug named Little John, played by Nick Brimble, who, if my memory serves me correctly, is in a relationship, a marriage to Lady Marion's close associate. Her name is Fanny. And I think he has something like 7 or 8 children. Everyone in the Sherwood Forest starts to respect Robin Hood, except for a hot-headed outcast who goes by the name of Will Scarlet, played by Christian Slater, who has had a vendetta with Robin Hood for a long time, even almost betraying him when he temporarily forms allies with the sheriff, but still found it in his heart to fool the sheriff and come clean with Robin. I mean, I didn't really like the way they utilized Will Scarlet. I found him to be kind of like, where are they going with him? I mean, one minute he's like fucking pissed off with Robin Hood, and the next thing you know, he becomes rogue, he aligns himself with it. It's like real on again, off again. Yeah, okay, I kind of know that he's kind of a little bit of a frenemy of Robin Hood. On the one hand, he's jealous of him because his father chose him as the chosen one to take down the greed and corruption that is affecting Nottingham, to aligning himself with the sheriff only to end up fooling him in the end, and then patching his differences and explaining that his father chose Robin over him, and that Will Scarlet and Robin Hood are actually half brothers. It's just very muddled, very confused. I'm not saying that Christian Slater turned in the worst performance here. I'm going to give the kid a break. Well, he's not a kid anymore, but back in the early 90s, he was still kind of like breaking into Hollywood. He was still in his early 20s at the time. But it he really just, I don't know. It just doesn't sit well that they made him more kind of like a soap opera character than one of the more prominent, skilled fighters of Robin's Merry Men. I guess I can understand that they were trying to add some dimension to Will Scarlet, but it just turned out more awkward. And they just didn't really know what the fuck to do with him. It appears, yeah, like I said, the exciting climax has Robin Azim, the eyeless and only surviving person during the Locksley Castle burn down, was a blind servant by the name of Duncan, played by Walter Sparrow, and the always drunken priest, Friar Tuck, played by Michael McShane, and the rest of the merry men fight in an epic battle to take down the elites in England, while Robin fights in a final showdown with the Sheriff of Nottingham. Oh my god, Michael McShane as Friar Tuck, he was amazing. I'm glad, they also added some great dimension to the Friar Tuck character. On the one hand, Friar Tuck could often come across as being some kind of goofy, religious, spiritual advisor, while other times he could come off as being uber serious and completely unlikable. Well, Friar Tuck does not come across as being an entirely likable character, but he also doesn't come across as being some frumpy, drunken comic relief. A little bit of mixture of both here. But he does have a good send-off to when he killed the bishop, It's like, I'll help you pack. Oh, yes, you're going to need a lot of gold. Oh, yeah, here's another sack because you're a bloody rich man. Oh, and here's a gift from me to you. Here's 30 pieces of silver that you can pay the devil on your trip to hell. And then he pushes the bishop out the window and he goes curse splat. And then all the villagers act like vultures and run off with whatever gold that he had taken, since he's this greedy, corrupt asshole. Oh my god, that scene alone has best supporting actor thing going for Michael McShane. Really, really classic. So there's a lot of memorable scenes in there. But still, much to the chagrin of the purists who gravitate towards the traditional format of seeing our beloved hero sport the olive green, high-waisted tights, the dashing, debonair, swashbuckling vigilante with that heroic, confident demeanor. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, sees Robin in a much more darker, intense subplots. We have conflicted characters and features more brutal and epical battles. And though Kevin Costner might be stale in his portrayal of Robin Hood, I'm not saying he's the strongest Robin Hood character. In fact, he might come across as being kind of weak compared to other ones. Okay, he's still 10 times better than Russell Crowe's. That version was terrible. His supporting cast seems to hold a lot more interest. Yes, this is one of those kind of movies where the supporting cast pretty much upstages our leading dashing hero. Under normal circumstances, Robin should be the star of the show, which he still is. But however, the more fleshed out characters depicted here have way more dimension. And it's pretty much the supporting cast that seems to be the one that shines a lot better. Morgan Freeman as a scene shows he is more than just a trusty sidekick or a token black character, as he shows that he can fight among the best and seems to be very intelligent and spiritual in nature. And I think he even gave birth to Little John's child. What was that, number 8? Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, definitely, like I said before, she has some level of feminism towards her character, as she can be tough in demeanor while still showing love from Robin, making her character beyond the realms of the damsel in distress, which has been an overlong, tiring cliche that's been done to death. Michael McShane could have taken his role as a bumbling, foolish priest to a level of comic relief, but he actually goes beyond that, as he's more than just some drunken preacher, especially when he takes down the corrupt Bishop of Hereford, played by Harold Innocent. But it is still, without a doubt, the best performer in this movie has got to go to the late, great Alan Rickman, who's dominant in every scene he's in as the always clad in black Sheriff of Nottingham. Rickman, who can play practically every kind of villain in his sleep, doesn't just play the evil sheriff, he lives vicariously in him from the moment and seems organically inclined to make us loathe this individual. But there's more to it than that. It's been said that Alan Rickman actually originally refused to be the Sheriff of Nottingham. He actually looked at the script and he thought that the script was one of the worst pieces of shit he had ever seen. And that he actually said, you know, you could do it with the script. You could take the script and you can wipe your ass with it. And it would make a difference. He decided to just go all out and ad-lib every single line he was doing. And he did it too. He said that he was gonna kill Robin Hood with a spoon. And yeah. Yeah, it was really, really fascinating. I really, really enjoyed his scenes that he was in. It was really wonderful. He really made this movie work on so many levels. There's no one past or present that captured the image of the sheriff so perfectly than the late Alan Rickman. Under the direction of Kevin Reynolds, he succeeded by taking ideas from the script written by Penn Densham and John Watson by creating the look, atmosphere, and situations that make it go beyond a formulaic costume drama. Sure, it's not perfect in any way. Robin's accent is not British. The pacing has its awkward moments. Some subplots were not necessary, like the Will Scarlet thing. Characters like Alan Adale and Prince John were absent. Richard the Lionheart has no Prince John. Guy of Gisborne is pretty much reduced to a stock character. And in the end, I wouldn't let that bother me in the least. It's still an effective story, and every time that everyone could enjoy. I would recommend it to children, but the movie is almost 2.5 hours long. Therefore, I can't for that specific reason alone. Some scenes did need to be cut. Sure, it's not for everyone, but for me, it was a satisfying aftertaste of a movie. So, when all is said and done, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would give Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, an 8 out of 10. So, I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And now we'll be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Correct Rider saying keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.